So with that, maybe a little context on the SWEEP and Healthy Soils program before I go on to the next slide. The SWEEP program is a program that's really focused on irrigation efficiency, and it's an older program in our office, almost 10 years old. Historically, we've given grants directly to farmers and ranchers to make improvements to their irrigation systems that save water and also reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the Healthy Soils program is really focused on carbon sequestration and soil health properties. And similarly, historically has given grants directly to farmers and ranchers. So the programs that we're talking about today, the formats are a little bit different and a deviation from what we've done historically. They are pilot programs. So we're trying out this new format. And go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So the idea behind the block grant programs is that CDFA's received sort of a big jump in funding from our historical appropriations to both SWEEP and the Healthy Soils program. So from our point of view, we're looking at some challenges at getting out the funding to farmers and ranchers efficiently and quickly. So one concept that's come forward that we've been talking about is the idea of this block grant pilot, where we would work directly with organizations that can then disperse the funding farther to farmers and ranchers. What we really aim to gain in CDFA is fewer grants to execute and manage, as those are very time-consuming processes. So we do think that there's some other opportunities, though, that we want to explore through the block grant programs. The first is facilitating the use of SWEEP and Healthy Soils program funding in regional or local strategies for soil health and water conservation. We understand that the resource concerns and management concerns are diverse throughout the state, so we expect to see regional and local priorities highlighted in the applications that we receive for these programs. And so I'd encourage you that when you're developing your application, clearly describe how your proposed project will help address the local concerns in your area. And then secondly, we hope that providing funding through this format will support the building of partnerships and organizational expertise. There's a lot of opportunity for new networking, building connections with farmers and ranchers at the local level, and of course, building the expertise within organizations with funding. So we do hope to accomplish that through these formats. Next slide, please. Okay, so we started talking about this block grant format in 2021 when SWEEP and the Healthy Soils received really unprecedented funding levels. We had some listening sessions. We also posted draft requests for grant applications for public comment late last year, and we talked about these formats at the meetings of the CDFA Environmental Farming Act Science Advisory Panel. And now we are finally around to having the solicitation. So very excited to get to it. That's it for me. I'm going to turn it over now to Nina to talk about the program guidelines. Thanks.
Thanks, Carolyn. Okay, so here's the outline for our webinar today. Carolyn gave a really lovely introduction for our programs and also the new pilot programs that we're running. Then I'll talk about the eligibility, so who can apply and then who would be the beneficiaries of these grants. I'll then touch on the funding and project budget allocations. Then we'll go into program deliverables and processes. This is sort of the meat of the block grants and what needs to be occurring. Then we'll talk about a timeline through the solicitation and award and when a tentative start for the awards. And then I'll pass it over to Scott. And Scott Weeks with the SWEEP program is going to be talking about resources we have. He's going to give you a website demonstration so you can actually see where you're on our public websites. You can locate these different resources, and that's for applicants and also for eventual awardees. Then Scott will also do an application demonstration. We have a new application portal this year, Amplifund. So Scott's going to step you through this so you familiarize yourself with it. And then he'll talk a little bit about the review criteria. And then we'll end with questions and also highlight a survey that we'll be running at the end. Okay, next slide. So here is the overall structure for our block grant. This is the same for both SWEEP and Healthy Soils. you can see CDFA all the way over here on the left, sort of being the overseeing group, and then we will provide funds directly to the block grant recipients. We have two types of block grant recipients that are eligible to provide technical assistance, and then block grant recipients that are not eligible to provide technical assistance. And if you are a block grant recipient that's ineligible to provide technical assistance, it's then required that you have a partner organization that is eligible to provide technical assistance. So that's this little connection to the technical assistance provider. As a block grant recipient, you'll be basically running the development, selection, implementation, verification, and then reporting for on-farm projects. And these on-farm projects are going to grant beneficiaries. So that's this category over here on the right. And grant beneficiaries, much like our traditional Healthy Soils Incentives or SWEET program, include folks that are California farmers and ranchers, agricultural operations, and farm lessees. So I'll go into this a little more in detail on the next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, so our block grant recipients. These are the entities that will submit the block grant application, and they will be the ones that receive the block grant award. These entities are the folks that are going to enter into agreements with CDFA to disperse funds to grant beneficiaries for on-farm projects. In addition, they'll select grant beneficiaries and assist with them for project implementation and verification. And also either the block grant recipient or their subcontracted technical assistance provider will provide technical assistance to grant beneficiaries to select and implement these eligible practices. So on the previous slide, I indicated that there's two groups of block grant recipients, those that are eligible to provide technical assistance. So that's this first list here, and that includes resource conservation districts, University of California Cooperative Extension, and nonprofit organizations. We also have eligible block grant recipients who are not able to provide technical assistance, and these are or they're part of it, but they could partner. So we see resource conservation districts are there as well. We also have nonprofit organizations, but we also have University of California, California Community College, California State Universities, federally and California recognized Native American Indian tribes, local regional government agencies such as air pollution control districts, California commodities or agricultural commissions, and just touching on those nonprofit organizations again, this is including but not limited to folks like groundwater sustainability agencies, irrigation districts, and land trusts. Okay, next slide. So if you need to partner with a technical assistance provider, or you would like to partner with a technical assistance provider, the eligible groups to provide technical assistance are resource conservation districts, University of California Cooperative Extension, and nonprofit organizations. And these are entities with demonstrated technical expertise in designing and implementing agricultural management practices. And they're the folks that will be assisting grant beneficiaries with project design and implementation. Under AB 2377, that's the legislation that actually dictates the eligibility for the groups, and I think maybe also set some funding constraints for them. And once again, if you are a block grant recipient that's not eligible to be a technical assistance provider, then you must partner with a group that is eligible and have that as a partner organization. Just want to touch on a couple of things for technical assistance providers. It's imperative that technical assistance providers do not charge fees for their services. Outreach materials prepared by the grant recipient must indicate that no fees or costs will be imposed on the grant beneficiary. Technical assistance providers may not require grant beneficiaries to include specific products or specific practices or favor specific contractors or other service providers when assisting with the project design. Additionally, technical assistance providers must declare all conflicts of interest, including sponsorship or funding by any corporation that may profit from CDFA's incentives programs. We have some things with recording and tracking of funds. So block grant recipients, along with TAPs, must prioritize assistance to socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. We abbreviate this as SDFR in our presentation on our RGA lab, and farms and ranches that are 500 acres or less. Additionally, block grant recipients are encouraged to prioritize assistance to AB 1550 and SB 535 priority populations when feasible. And as required by AB 2377, at least 25% of the technical assistance funds must be used to provide technical assistance to socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. And it's on the block grant recipient and TAPs to track these funds. Next slide, please. Oh, we're going for a ride. Okay, so grant beneficiaries, these are the folks that will actually be getting the on-farm projects to be implemented. Individuals and entities that either own or control the agricultural land where eligible practices will be implemented through on-farm projects. And these individuals or entities may be referred to as farmers, ranchers, agricultural operations, or farm lessees. The list is here. You can see that that includes farmer ranchers, agricultural operations, nonprofit organizations working as agricultural operations, and also federally and California recognized Native American Indian tribes. All these groups have to be located in California as well. Next slide. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about the funding and budget allocation. I'm going to talk about common things between the SWEEP and the Healthy Soils Block Grant pilot programs. For both programs, the total award budget is between $2 and $5 million. This means we have a maximum award of $5 million and a minimum award of $2 million. At least 80% of the total budget should be allocated for on-farm project implementation for grant beneficiaries. This means that with the remaining 20% of the budget, a maximum of 15% of the total budget can be allocated for direct and indirect administrative costs, and a maximum of 5% of total budget can be allocated for technical assistance. I want to add that the technical assistance 5% is in addition to the 15% administrative costs. So all payments will be made to the block grant recipients, and then block grant recipients will be responsible for further disbursements of funds, and this is either to their subcontracted partners or the grant beneficiaries themselves. CDFA is allowing advance payments. These are up to 25% of the total budget. We will allow multiple advance payments, but we require that you expend the entire advance payment before you apply for an additional advance payment. And the timeline for expending that advance payment is 3 months. Okay, next slide. So here's some specifics for the program. For the SWEEP Block Grant Pilot Program, a total of up to $40 million is awarded or could be awarded, and then the maximum funding available to grant beneficiary is $200,000. For the Healthy Soils Block Grant Pilot Program, up to $29 million may be awarded. And our maximum funding is also $200,000. This is, if you're familiar with our incentives program previously, this is an increase in the budget for grant beneficiaries from previous rounds. Also new to the block grant program, block grant recipients may request up to $30,000 to purchase equipment as a 50% cost share to assist with on-farm implementation. If this is something you're planning on doing, as an applicant, you'll need to provide justification and a maintenance plan and a usage plan as part of the application. And just to sort of touch on this as clarity, let's say your total equipment cost is $60,000, we can provide $30,000 of that. Okay, next slide. Scott's going to go into this a little bit later when he's talking about the grant platform, but to get you started thinking about the budgets, we have 12 subcategories in the block grant budget for you to enter line items towards. And each of these subcategories, when you enter a line item, is going to require an explanation of the cost. The subcategories will emphasize funding allocation between administrative, technical assistance, and on-farm funded projects. We'll have line items for each subcategory, and they should align with tasks listed in the work plan. So what we're really looking for is that the costs that you're going to incur are directly related to then the tasks you're doing in your work plan. As a quick note, indirect costs should be calculated by the applicant, and it's done using the appropriate rate. So depending on the entity applying, you may have a different indirect cost rate. I believe we list these in our RGAs. And then for all budget subcategories, including indirect costs, When you're entering this in the application portal, the awardee will enter the cost for the line item into the form direct cost. That's just where you're going to enter the cost of the practice, even if it's called direct cost. Okay, next slide. So as I was saying, here are the 12 budget subcategories. You can see that they are split between on-farm grants, that's A, and then for most of the rest of these, we have splits between administrative and technical assistance. On-farm grants, we have personnel, salary and wages, and fringe benefits. We have travel, supplies and equipment, and then for Healthy Soils program, if you're going to purchase a larger equipment with that shared cost share, it's down here. So these are two different categories. We have contractual. As our understanding, if you are a block grant recipient that's going to contract with a partner organization to supply technical assistance, this is where you would put your budgets for that. Any other things that don't fall into a category, and then we have you calculate the indirect costs for the budget and enter here. Okay, next slide. So now I'm going to talk about the program deliverables. This is sort of the meat of the block grant program. We'll step through all of the sort of tasks that we imagine that the block grant recipient will be doing and emphasize some of the important items in them. So the first one is the outreach plan. As an applicant, you're going to address this in the statement of need and work plan sections in your application. What we're really looking for in the outreach plan is that the block grant recipient is really aware of the service area and the community demographics and who they're going to be serving. In context for that, you have to indicate then the expected percentage of grant award that you can commit to serving socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers, and provide an explanation on that percentage number. Just want to highlight once again that AB 2377 does require that 25% of technical assistance funding is to be utilized to benefit socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. So after you do your outreach plan, we'll then start into the project development. On-farm projects must still meet program requirements. And so the block grant program will be funding on-farm implemented projects, and these on-farm implemented projects are basically what has been the traditional incentives for Healthy Soils program or SWEEP solicitations. And so we have listed those requirements in our RGA. For the Healthy Soils program, these requirements are on-farm projects start at page 30 in our RGA, and for SWEEP, the requirements for on-farm projects start on page 27. And the projects being developed have to meet these requirements. To assist you with this, we are going to provide you tools. For instance, like with Healthy Soils program, we have a replan tool. We are making some updates to this, but we expect these tools will be then available for project development. And in addition to that, then when you do reporting later, these tools might help assist with the data that you have to report. So the on-farm project development is really addressed in the work plan section of the application as you're moving through it. Okay, next slide. So now we have on-farm project selection and approval. As you're describing this in the application, this is addressed primarily in the work plan section of the application. And applicants must indicate the methods used for project selection and approval. So we're not dictating a specific way that you will select on-farm projects. But what we do require is that you emphasize equity and transparency, including things like multilingual services. Once you have selected a batch of on-farm projects that meet program requirements, you'll then send them over to CDFA for a quick check to make sure these are eligible. This is not a content review. I want to emphasize that this isn't going to be some sort of technical review in addition to what you're doing in your development and your selection process. What we're checking for here is something like with Healthy Soils program, we check to make sure you're not funding the same practice on the same APN that's been funded previously. So it's just a sort of quick eligibility check. So the selected projects sent over have to meet program requirements. We're expecting them to be good projects ready to go just to make sure one final check. So once you have your approved and selected projects, implementation will start. So when you're talking about what tasks you're going to do with project implementation, you'll describe this in the work plan section of the application. Projects should be implemented according to program timelines. So as I indicated, these projects have to meet our program requirements. For instance, in Healthy Soils program, we have compost application, and that has to be applied once a year for 3 years. This is what we're talking about when we say projects have to meet program timelines. Technical assistance should continue to be available for implementation. You know, many farmers and ranchers are able to implement these things themselves, but many need a little boost, and that's what we are expecting that to be available. And applicants must include a plan for how to maintain consistency and quality across all our on-farm projects. So we're really looking to make sure that every project implemented is meeting levels of standard. We understand that on-farm projects might change over the course of their life, and changes to scope of work might need to happen. And we just ask that the block grant recipients review and approve these scopes of work changes, and then also report what those changes are to CDFA in your quarterly reports. This might be perhaps somebody is decreasing the acreage they're going to implement, and this would decrease your implementation acreage or your greenhouse gas reductions. Okay, next slide. So once the projects are implemented, you'll then start a verification process and progress reporting. When you're describing the tasks associated with this, it's going to be addressed in the work plan section of the application. And the block grant recipient must provide a method for assessing correct on-farm project implementation. I want to highlight that SWEEP requires on-site visits to verify project completion. So this is a note for SWEEP. And once you verify these things, you're going to submit quarterly reports to CDFA on progress, changes, project completion, that kind of thing. And we will provide reporting templates for you, so you won't be guessing at the information we want, you'll know directly. Disbursement of funding. So this is talking about in the qualification of applicants, what kind of structure you have for administrative handling of funds, also work plan, the tasks associated with this, and budget sections of the application. We'll be doing quarterly invoicing. The block grant recipient and the technical assistance providers are responsible for tracking expenses. Specifically, the technical assistance provider must track and report funding utilized for assisting SDFR. That's a legislative component from, I think, AB 2377. Okay, so over the whole course of the block grant, training and communication is going to be essential for this. We're here to assist you. We really want to build regional capacity, and we understand that as part of that, you'll need training and support. And so we ask that block grant recipients and technical assistance providers will continue to coordinate with CDFA and maintain good channels of communication, either email or phone calls. We will provide CDFA trainings for block grant administrative tasks, and this is something that's mandatory then for block grant recipients and technical assistance providers to attend. Also, we hope most of our projects go really well, but on the off chance that things aren't going so great, CDFA does reserve the right to conduct a critical project review of a block grant recipient at any point during the process. Okay, next slide. So here's a timeline, and this timeline starts, in April, and it runs through this coming November. So the solicitation for the block grant opened April 19th, 2023. We're currently right now hosting informational webinars. We had one yesterday morning too. Grant applications are due June 19th at 5 p.m. After all the applications are submitted, and I want to note that the process is not first come, first served. So it's a-okay to take your time with the application, make sure you get it right, get those partnerships set up, really plan things out, wait for questions to be answered. It's all the administrative and technical review will occur after the end of the deadline. So we'll start that after June 19th, and it'll run probably through July. And then we're hoping to announce awards in July 2023. Shortly after we announce awards, we'll host some awardee training workshops. This is probably focused on getting started in that award execution process, but also first steps into the grant recipient process. And then the award process, and this is things that include like pre-project consultation, making sure everything's aligned in your scope of work, creating that scope of work, and then sending those packages off to the Office of Grant Administration and Fiscal if there's advanced payments for processing and execution. And you'll see that's running through November 2023. So we're tentatively targeting a start date for block grant activities around November 2023. You'll notice I have an asterisk over the time frame. Some of these processes are out of our hands. It's also an entirely new program, so we do expect this might be subject to change. So don't, this is a good guideline, but things might change a little bit, but we'll try and do our best in communication. Okay, next slide. And I'll pass it to Scott. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm not going to share my video just because it seems to bog down the system as if I do this. I will share it during the Q&A process. But first of all, thank you, Nina, for all the details you've covered preliminarily. I'm here for the second wave of this presentation to go over some of the resources, talk about the application process, budget, and FAQs, so on and so forth. And so let's get started. Just an overview of some of the resources. General resources we have, I'd really visit the web pages that we have. Both the HSP and the SWEEP web page have sub web pages that are targeted for block grants. So if you go to the SWEEP web page, you'll see a link to the block grant recipient subpage. The same is true for the Healthy Soils page. On that page, we have the frequently asked questions document, which we are going to be updating as more questions come in. And we have received questions both during this presentation and during last presentation, as well as into our inboxes. And we've been getting those answered, and we will standardize those languages and then post them to the various pages just as a reference, rather than directly answer FAQ questions one at a time. We do it in a consolidated manner. So another very important document, if not the most important document, which is what I would read if I was interested in applying for this grant, is the request for grant applications document. Now, we both have similar but yet different documents, SWEEP and HSP do. So I would really encourage you all to review that, make sure you have a firm understanding of what we're really looking for here, and get prepared to submit a competitive application. We do have in the RGA, we have an Appendix C, which is of the Amplifund Navigation and Preview panel. It's sort of a process that shows you about what Amplifund is and how you can utilize it. I will show you that in a moment as well. We have on the website the sample questionnaire and technical review criteria, the work plan template, and then of course Amplifund itself has a help page integrated into the system, which you can use in order to ask questions if you run into hurdles with the actual platform itself. I don't imagine you will, but it is there. Some additional block grant recipient resources. HSP has a on-farm project reporting template that's posted on their website in their resources section right now. They also have a letter of commitment for landowners or permission letter for leasees. The GAP manual is something that's in the works, but the Grant Awards Procedure Manual is what GAP stands for. And it's really the process about invoicing, being reimbursed, and some of the technical criteria that's associated with that. And then we have the program tech mailboxes. So we have both HSP Tech and SWEEP Tech. I'll show you those email addresses later on in this presentation. But that really is the primary means of communication. They're joint inboxes, so they go to the whole team, and it gives multiple people the eyes to review these things and respond in a timely manner. All right, I do want to show you the website demo. I'm going to just tour this the Healthy Soils website demo. SWEEP is similar; it's not identical, but by showing you this, you will see something similar. Okay, so like I'd mentioned, there's this Healthy Soils program page, but then there's a sub page, that block grant program. You're going to want to click there to get to the block grant program, block grant pilot program web page. Here we have that request for grant applications. This is a very important document. I would certainly, and I'm reiterating the fact that I would review this, and you can also find details inside of it by control find, look for APN information, etc. As you go through this document. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it, hopefully. It's not wanting to let me make it bigger. Let's try that. Well, I guess I'm not making this web page bigger at this time. Okay. We have the application questions and review criteria. This is a useful document. If I was going to apply, I would come here and I'd take this first. I'd have kind of formulate what the questions are that are associated with this application and come up with some basic answers before I even started the click to apply process. The frequently asked questions, this is where you're going to find, this does not want to let me interact today. Okay, sorry about that. Frequently asked questions, this is where you're going to find answers to the questions that you all are asking us through this process. We standardize them and we post them there. The work plan template, I'll go into that. Now you're going to apply here. This is where you click to apply. One thing I want to make sure that's very clear to you all is if you're interested in applying for Healthy Soils and the SWEEP program, you're going to need to apply to each program individually. You do not apply to them at the same time by clicking here to apply. They have separate web pages and slightly different applications that you'll need to answer those questions for. Additionally, there's this recipient resources tab. This is where you can, again, find the RGA, but there is this on-farm project reporting template and the letter of commitment for the permission letter template located here. These would be resources that in the event that you're selected for an award, we'll go over and train you on, but that's where they are for preview. We will also be posting a link to this webinar for further use later on down the line once we get that all figured out. So let's go back to the application demo. So now I'm going to show you the application itself in a moment. But first of all, AmpliFund is the new application grant management platform that we have. In this platform, it has the capacity to apply, also do reporting and submit invoices to this same standardized system. Now we're going to be asking for you all to apply using this tool, and we'll see if we're going to be using the reporting and invoicing features. In the event that we do, we will certainly provide some training on as to how those resources work. Before an application gets started, I might be a broken record here, but I'm trying to reiterate a few things. You're going to want to review the application preview on the website, identify what tasks you're going to be achieving and by whom, indicate approximate dates that these tasks will be conducted, develop this work plan, and also set up an itemized budget. As a reminder, no more than 5% of the total project funds can be used for technical assistance. This is in adherence to the AB 2377 law, which dictates that only 5% of the total project funds can be used for this. And then no more than 15% of the cumulative funds can be used for administrative costs. What this means is that if you request $2 million in grants, you would be able to have $100,000 in technical assistance up to, and not more than, and you don't necessarily have to do $100,000 in the technical assistance category, and then the $300,000 in the administrative cost categories. But 80% of these funds need to be going towards on-farm projects, which we will identify at a later date. That means that $1.6 million in this $2 million example that I just outlined, at the very least needs to be allocated to that. Now, if you wish to allocate more towards these on-farm projects, not a bad choice. Okay, application demo. So there's some sections in this application. There's the opportunity details, which is really a general overview of this overall application. It gives you some basic information about the application itself, some timelines. There's some links in there for resources, but it's really just a preview page that shows you some fairly basic information. Then there's the project information. Again, this is basic information, but this project information tab asks for, contact information and the amount of funding that you're requesting. And then we'll get into the application forms section. There is 6 parts to the application form section. There's the applicant information, partner information, qualifications of the applicants or applicant, and however you wish to devise that. The statement of need based off of your regional necessities, work plan, merit, and feasibility, and then the budget overview. There's a narrative section to the budget. There also is an additional category, which is the budget itself. This is a feature built into Amplifund, and it allows for itemization of budget based off of the various categories that Nina had outlined earlier. I believe 12 of them were what she indicated. There's 12 categories within this tool, and you'll need to do your best to identify which particular item that you're looking to do falls into which specific budget category. And then submit. All sections need to be marked as complete in order to click submit in this system. So basically, I had alluded to those 5 different application sections. You'll go through and submit each one before you go to the final step, which is to submit the total packet. If this is a little bit confusing, it should make more sense when I show you the actual application, which I will do now. Okay. And okay, I hope that's big enough for you all to see. I think I made it bigger the other day. And this is the opportunity information page. Now, before I get too deep into this, I do want to let you all know that this is a test portal. This is not the actual portal that we're using to submit or receive applications through. So it is only minor, very slightly different than the application will be in the event, but it's mostly, this training is to show you how the portal works. So the opportunity information, it tells you the description, who's in charge of what, so on and so forth, some links, etc. But I'm going to skip past this part. I'm going to go to the apply section. Now I already have a test application 3, and this one is in the unsubmitted status for me. So remember how I alluded to 5 different things? There's these 5 different steps up here: the opportunity details, particular information, application forms, budget, and submit. So I am going to be in the opportunity details page. Let's go. I will go to the project information page. This is when I give my application name, the total amount that I'm requesting. Now, it might sound a little counterintuitive to request funds before you have itemized a budget. Just know that that's how the system works. So you can always circle back and edit this award requested amount, the amount of funds you're requesting from CDFA in this category. Once you've gone into this budget, if you need to circle back to increase or decrease it accordingly, you're able to, as long as you don't submit first. And then just some really basic information, like I said, location, so on and so forth. Now I'm going to save and continue rather than mark as complete, because I want to make sure I'm still able to edit this. Then I go into the application form section. Now I only have one, what's called a form within the system, but there's I believe it was 6 different subcategories found within this. So something that's really important to keep in mind, you're going to want to continue, you're always going to want to save this. If you need to walk away, it's lunchtime or whatever happens, you get a phone call, you're going to want to click save. If you don't click save, it will time out and it will not save. It does not automatically save the information that you put in here. So it's just one of those steps that I'd recommend you continue to do as you fill out this application. In the event that you're complete and you're ready to submit this, you're going to want to mark that bottom part as complete and then move the project along. Now, please review this instructions information before you get to it. But let's go to part 1, applicant information. So the first question it's going to ask you is, what is the application ID? Now, that is the last 4 digits of the URL code. So go up here, if you can see my mouse, you'll see that there's 4 digits at the very end. You can copy that, paste it right in here, and you have the number. This is just a unique identifier that we need in order to manage this application, and you will need it later on. I'd probably write it on a sticky note and stick it on my monitor or something as I fill this out. Okay, so in my mock test application, I have set up a scenario which I am a nonprofit and I am working with the CSU system as a supporting entity. This is a secondary applicant in this process in order to provide technical assistance. So me as a nonprofit, though I'm eligible to receive or provide technical assistance, I have deemed myself not going to. And you'll see why in a moment as I go through. And then I fill out my applicant or information. So this is all not real information. It's not super thorough. So I would expect to see more higher level of detail and actual applications that are looking to be submitted. The lead organization state does need to be California. So if you're not in California, you unfortunately are not eligible to apply as a lead applicant for this grant. So just keep that in mind, please. We get primary contact information, phone numbers, emails, physical contact, phone numbers, emails, names, and then your state and assembly districts. We have embedded links in here, and you can control click and open it up in a new tab and use it as a resource in order to find your California State Senate district based off of your city and zip code. So, and then you'll put that information here. You'll put in your tax identification number, your federal employment identification number, and then if you receive funding from previous OFI, Office of Environmental Farming and Innovation grants. So if you've received funding from, say, you were a previous technical assistance provider, or you've received funding for HSP demo or various other programs that CDFA, OFI administers, you can go ahead and just click that you have received funding and then fill out those agreement numbers in here, just so we can keep track of those things. So partner information. In this scenario, my partner was the California State University. It's not a specific one. It's just this newly formed test, California State University. And they are going to be the ones that are providing technical assistance in my scenario. I indicate that, where they're located, that they are, what their contact number information is, their email address, basically the same thing. It does also give me the opportunity to put in a third individual. Let's say I'm working with a translation services, or I have a technical expert that's going to be helping with some of these irrigation related project designs. That's not a third-party contractor that I'm funneling money into, but rather a partner that's going to be working with these to see to it that we get these grants executed soundly and efficiently as possible. This individual will be indicated as the additional contact, and you can list their contact information below. Qualification of applicants. It's going to ask you right away to put in the CVs or the resumes for these individuals, the lead organizations and partnerships. One thing that's nice about Amplifund that was not true in our previous application portal is you can attach multiple things to each file. So meaning that I don't need to go through and merge all of the resumes into a single document. I can just continually stack them on this choose file feature. Then we're going to get into the question part of this. Now, I'm not going to read you every single one of these questions. I expect interested applicants to go through and actually read these and be thorough with them. But I'll read a few of them that are highlights. So for this example, it has a paragraph limit, no more than 3 paragraphs. Please describe the lead person or lead organization's capacity, experience with implementing water and energy efficient practices in agricultural settings within California. So this is where you're going to want to talk about the in my case, maybe the nonprofit's experience working with these types of agricultural operations and implementing irrigation, water use efficiency, agricultural projects, things like that. And let's see, experience. This one's about relationship building. Talk about how you've dealt with perhaps the hard to reach individuals in your area, and what sort of pathways you've developed in order to reach out to, potentially one example is experience targeting the socially disadvantaged farmers and rancher. If you need the definition of socially disadvantaged farmer and rancher, you can find that in the RGA. I don't remember the exact definition off the top of my head, but it's a series of groups. Let's see, lead persons, your experience administering grants, so what you've done in the past. And then let's go into the statement of needs section, part 4. This is where you're going to identify your main service area. So in this mock application, I've indicated that I'm going to be providing support in Placer County and Sacramento County, but nothing else. And the description of my service area, I can put a map here if I have, sometimes entities have boundaries in which they work in, and there's a reason that they're within this defined service area. Now, also in this scenario, I decided I'm going to be interested in working outside my service area, and it looks like I'm going to be supporting El Dorado and Yolo counties. This is the means in which we identify the various counties in which you will be able to provide support. This information is going to be, I believe, posted on our website in order for interested applicants to find technical block grant recipients that can support an application that they may wish to pursue, and what their service area is. So it's really important that we help identify these areas. That way, if someone's down in Fresno, we don't have somebody in Yolo calling them and asking them for help installing the farm. We'll have been able to define their service regions. So you're talking about the service area coverage. Okay, this one's fairly important. So in no more than 5 paragraphs, please describe the outreach strategy for your service area. In your explanation, please include an explanation of how equity will be assessed and achieved in your service area. So this is when we're talking about the socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. CDFA does make it a priority to achieve at least 25% of the funds that are spent for technical assistance to be targeted for socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. And we're going to want to understand how you're going to be able to target those. Sometimes they're hard to reach communities. And then in here, so I don't necessarily, I want to make sure something is clear. You don't necessarily have to achieve, or you don't have to apply for achieving 25% of the SDFR community. It is just a goal, and it is a requirement for the technical assistance provider program. But in the event that say you can only achieve 15%, just please provide ample justification as to the reason, so we can better understand the inability to achieve that specific goal. So the one further point of clarity here, though, is that 25% of the technical assistance provided dollars are required to go towards the support of socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. So that's for the technical assistance subcomponent. Now, indicate the estimated percentage of funds requesting for this. So in my example, I indicated it's 25%. I want to show you this real quick because it is kind of odd. I would, you might say, okay, 25, right? And then it goes 2,500%. No, so it is a decimal. Make sure you use a decimal. It makes sense if you think about it. But if you indicate 25,000 or 2,500, well, then we have to go back and figure out what the real number is. I'm sure we can do that, but just a room for an error, a spot where an error can happen. So in no more than 3 paragraphs, please explain funding will be addressed in the needs of the identified target communities. Make sure you identify the technical or language assistance that's needed. So I indicated that we're going to be providing workshops in support Spanish and Hmong, and then your indication will be providing language other than English. I should have said yes and then answered what it was, but so work plan, merit, and feasibility, part 5. So this is when we're going to be really talking about what you're doing and what your timeline is, or the plan that you're developing, the work plan. And so you can download the template here. this is where you find the actual Excel document. And we're doing it as an Excel attachment. And then you can upload it here. And this is an example of where you find that primary key identification number. Again, I'll just show you that. But I have a mock example of a block grant technical assistance, which I'm going to download now and show to you. Hopefully it opens. And I do want to stress one thing. This is a very simple project that I've decided to build here. This is not reflective of necessarily the level of detail that we're requesting, whether or not maximum or minimum. This is just an example that I created. So use this to the extent of the guide it's reasonable, but don't expect to just we prefer to have some details here. Is what I'm trying to get at. Not an insane amount of details, but if you itemize what these specific processes are, that's very helpful. So first of all, the application ID, that's that number that I had alluded to in the URL before. And then there's these program deliverables. So here I can find a drop-down box, and I have a series of program deliverables that are pre-populated. So there's the outreach on-farm project. There is, actually, let's make this bigger. Let's see if I can get lucky this time and make it bigger. Come on, you can make it bigger. I believe in you. Okay. Maybe not today. All right. Well, I have to squint. I'm sorry. I'm sure let's see. Doing section. All right. Let's make it big. When there's a will, there's a way, right, people? So I have the ability to have these drop-down menu, which is outreach, on-farm project development, on-farm project approval. So on-farm project development might be when I'm sitting here coming up with project ideas, getting the invoices lined up, getting project design set up, doing my quantification calculations, etc. On-farm project approval, that sounds like a review process. So in your application, you should be identifying how you're planning on reviewing these applications and what means you're going to be using, whether it's a first come, first serve, competitive application. We're not looking for projects that are just your friends and family. We're looking for a competitive or a process that shows fair, equal treatment for the constituents in your area. So you're going to want to highlight that. But this is good about who. How you're going to approve those projects. Then what's going on during the project implementation, who's going to be supporting that. That project verification component, as we alluded to earlier, projects need to be verified that they're complete. So who's going to do that and how are they going to do that? And what's the time frame they're going to do that? Reporting and then training, if you're going to be offering different types of training. So let's see if I can unzoom this. Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway, in this example, I have a workshop that I put in here. We will host 3 workshops to solicit the grant. And I indicated that was going to be fall 2023 till spring 2024. That was going to be done by a person named Test Senior, and he or she is a senior researcher working, I think, for the nonprofit organization. And then, I have my on-farm project approval. It's going to be done by technical review is what I'm calling this. And then we will send these projects, me as the nonprofit will send these projects to the CSU system in order to do the technical review I developed and be scored. And this is done by a professor at CSU. And he's doing it from spring to summer 2024. This is the timelines we're looking for. There's also the opportunity to do entire grant term. So reporting. I would imagine you're all going to be trying to report throughout the whole process. So I've indicated here that the Test Junior, who's working with the nonprofit, who's Jeff Paddle's administrator, is going to be doing reporting on a quarterly basis through the entirety of the grant term until we've reached a conclusion here. So there's the opportunity for that. So that you'll see there's a drop down for these selection criteria. I want to just also stress one thing, which is that in the event of you're not quite sure about the timeline that you're looking for, as I think about this, I would exercise a little bit of caution and try and give myself a little extra time rather than a really short amount of time to say do I don't know, outreach, for example. It might be something that takes a little bit longer than I expected. So, and we've also put it into a quarterly system rather than an exact date. So we don't want December 12th, 2023, you're going to be done with outreach. We're looking for a quarter. So, okay, that is the work plan. Okay. So this is where Nina had alluded to talking about outreach, no more than 3 paragraphs. Please describe your outreach plan associated with identifying potential grant beneficiaries and your service area, and then also SDFR on following project grant beneficiary approval. So this is about how these projects are going to be reviewed. Am I going to be doing a first come, first serve, a competitive, or maybe a hybrid or a different type of review process? What's the strategy here? And this is the opportunity for me to put this information out here. And then what's the estimated number of projects that are SDFR, so socially disadvantaged farmers and grants beneficiary, that are going to be indicated that I'm going to be awarding. So like I said, this is an estimate. So you're not going to know that you have, in my example, 35 beneficiaries that are going to be applying for this grant in order to award this $1.6 million to all 35 of them, and that 10 of them are going to be socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. These are estimates. These are off your project goals that you're trying to set up and despite a CDFA when we're in the process of reviewing your project. So this is just a process of identifying probable likely outcomes. And if in the event that you award 36 people, it certainly will not be the end of the world. You still have a cap on the amount of funds that are going towards these projects. So it's not a report that's going to come to us and we're going to think, you've gone rogue. No, not at all. So project development implementation. So this is about how you're going to help implement these conservation management practices or water use efficiency practices on these projects. How you're going to verify these projects. I indicated the CSU staff is going to verify these projects to ensure that there's a third party associated with it rather than the nonprofit who's the grant beneficiary. And CDFA requires quarterly invoicing. So please acknowledge that you are going to be doing this in a timely manner. I hope you don't click no. So you should probably click yes. And then reporting. This is just about telling us about your reporting process, what you're going to be doing, how you're going to maintain that timely manner through the whole process. And then we ask for a project summary here. Now, this project summary is in no more than 3 paragraphs. We want you to summarize the totality of your project. Now, that might sound meager and intimidating, but it shouldn't be. This is the intent of this paragraph is a resource that we can use in order to provide a summary of what your project is, if we're going to be posting it online or using it as a means to reduce the cumulative outcomes of your project. So this is just a summary. Please write this in third person. It just helps with editing. We don't want to hear that, I will be doing these things. I would say the nonprofit and the CSU system will be achieving this process. The budget. So we're going to talk about describing the budget, estimated expenses, administrative technical assistance, and so on and so forth. You can always circle back as you fill out the budget if you'd like to come back here and then complete it. But in this example, I said that, and I want to make sure I reiterate this. I'm requesting $2 million from that earlier tab. 5% of that is $100,000 for technical assistance. 15% of that is $300,000, which means that I have $1.6 million used for those projects to fund those 35 projects that I've outlined before. Now, this is a very brief example, and we're asking for up to 3 paragraphs. So please just provide some detail here about what you're doing. Okay, how are you going to track these grants over the life of the projects? Talk about that. And then this is if you're purchasing that shared equipment for demonstrations or to demonstrate the need. So this is for HSP. When you're potentially purchasing a seed drill or something like that. And then I'm going to save and continue. I'm not going to mark that as complete until I'm ready to complete them all. Okay. Now in the budget. So I have already gone through and pre-populated these budget items. Again, this is a mock example. This was not to be written down, copied and pasted into your own example. If you did, it's a pretty slim application itself. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. Okay, so I put in 85 or 80% is going to go for those 35 on-farm grants, which is $1.6 million. You know, I'm not exactly sure what that equates to on an average grant cost. And that's for column A. Then there's column B, which is, or section B1, which is personal salary, wages, and fringe benefits for the administration cost. And then there's B2, which is for the technical assistance. So you'll see that there's B1, B2, C1, C2, D1, D2. Each one is differentiating between administrative costs, that's at that 15%, or the technical assistance cost, that 5%. However, in my example that I'm coming up with, I am actually contracting with somebody else. I am a nonprofit, and I am eligible to provide technical assistance. However, I've decided that I do not wish to do so, and I'm going to be contracting with the CSU system. That does not mean that the contract that I would put in the CSU's related expenses for technical assistance in B2 or C2. This is only based off of me as the primary applicant. So it's a little confusing. I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say. And I hope that we'll see some consistency across these applications with me stressing that. Okay, so in here, I indicated that I'm going to be doing staff wages for the lead, and this is for a 3-year project. I wanted 150,000. And then staff wages for that administrative, 70,000 for the 3 years. This is just, again, an example. Supplies and equipment. So I need help applying. I need help supporting applicants to apply. So I need to get some new computers. Contractually, I am signing up to be contractually with the CSU system. Now, it is an administrative expense for me to do technical review or project verification. Technical assistance has its own defined categories. So in here, I have differentiated between E1 and E2. E2 is, about technical assistance staff hours, indirect costs, and technical assistance driving when I'm going out to the field. We're going to say translation services and workshops, and there are various numbers that are in here. And then I have an indirect cost administrative of 15%. And it looks like I'm trying to do a shared use equipment of a no-till drill, which is, in my estimate, 50% is $5,000. So this is a $10,000 piece of equipment. I'll quickly show you. First of all, I have these items already pre-built in here. I can open them up, and I can open it up. Okay, there's a pencil icon. Pencil icon allows me to open this thing up and indicate what it is. So it's a non-personnel item, 50% no-till drill, $5,000 direct cost. And I have a narrative section. So I put the drill cost $10,000 and it's part of cost share. Now you can be elaborative in this section to firmly define your narrative, but that is the case here for what I was doing. And let's say I find out that I also need, I don't know. Let's see. Let's add another shared use item. So I'm going to put the plus sign. That's how I add a new item. And I am going to call this shared use item number 2. For a lack of creativity and my inability to think of a shared use item or suggest what one might be, there it is. And I'm going to say this costs $3,000. And it is a direct cost in this case, but if I'm filling out indirect cost, it'll still ask me for my indirect cost and in a direct cost category. It's sort of confusing there, but okay. I'm going to say I would like to buy a shared use item number 2 to help with projects. Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm going to create that. So now it added to $3,000. But as you probably noticed, I have only requested $2 million. So now I'm going over budget by $3,000. So grant funds total cannot exceed the award amount for the project. The grant funded total cannot exceed the award requested on the project information page. Okay, so what does that mean? I can't submit this? Okay. Well, what I can go do and go back here is I can go back to my project information page, like it said, and I can say, oh, it turns out I need $3,000 more. Oops. And then I'm going to save and continue. I'm going to go back to my budget. And now at the end, I can, if there's no longer giving me a problem about total overage, overall budget costs. That's good. I will tell you this project would be denied because now you have not reached that 80% threshold. I mean, it's off by a couple $100 or maybe a couple $1,000, but 80% of this needs to go towards project funds. So we do totals, and we make sure that these indirect costs are reasonable, that these technical assistance dollars are within that 5% threshold, and that 80% of the funds are going towards grants for technical assistance. So let's just say we don't want this then. We're going to delete it. Delete that. Okay, now we're back. We're at $3,000 over. We've had a change of heart, and we're going to go back here, and we're going to go back here and update that, save and continue, and we should be good to go. We should be fine back to where it's at. Now that's the reason I'm trying to hammer down the idea of don't mark things as complete, save and continue. Only until or once you mark as complete. Well, I'm afraid to click that button to find I can't edit it again. So all right, we're just gonna save and continue. And then now let's say I feel good about this application. My peers have reviewed it. The team is all on the same page. Then I can go through and mark each one of these complete, and then I can submit. Right now I can't submit because I haven't marked these complete. It'll add green check boxes as I go through, so it'll tell me which ones are not marked as complete. Okay, I hope that wasn't too much to absorb, but let's go back to the actual preview PowerPoint. So application review criteria. Now you can see a preview of the review criteria both in the RGA and then also in the application preview that exists on the web pages. I have said this before, but I'll say it again. It's useful to look at that application preview on the web page, come up with answers, look at the technical review criteria, and then open up Amplifund and submit that application, filling out those things, probably from a pre-filled form. That's just how I would do it. That's not saying that's how it needs to be done. Okay, once you've submitted an application, it goes into administrative review. Now we review these applications to make sure that they're complete and they're eligible. So if I would have submitted and not had 80% of those dollars going towards on-farm project implementation, let's say it was 79%, that project would be denied. And then, everyone would be unhappy about that. So make sure you check that number. And then, of course, we're just going to review, make sure that the attachments are there, that you actually have resumes, and where it says resumes, and then they're not just random pictures or something. And then we're gonna send it to what's called technical review. This is when they go to based off the technical review criteria. It's sort of a guidance document for technical reviewers. And CDFA, OFI, we're going to be working with other state agencies to perform this technical review of these applications. And each of these projects are going to be scored based off of the scoring criteria that we've outlined here on the right-hand side of the screen. Projects will be scored out of 100, and the top ranked applications will be selected until we've essentially expended these dollars that we have for these projects. So hopefully we should not have a problem with achieving enough applications in order to be oversubscribed in this scenario. But the criteria we have 30 points for qualification of applicant. So, do you have experience with this? Have you worked in teams and irrigation systems before? Then the statement of need, is your area, do you have the capacity or need that's necessary to apply for these types of grants or support applicants for this type of grant? The work plan, how clearly does it identify activities? And does it address the needs that were identified in the statement of needs? So the work plan should be congruent with really the statement of need, the budget, and these things should all be very similar. As an example, I tried to show you in sort of a simplistic route for my mock application. And then the budget, are these costs outlined reasonable? Are you asking for something that seems very expensive relative to what it is? Or is it a relatively comparable price? Did you complete it correctly? And does it reflect the work plan? And is the narrative supporting this, or are you just going rogue on your budget and saying you're going to do one thing on your budget and something completely different in your statement of need and your work plan? Usually, people will have some congruency between all these subcomponents. So, okay, FAQ process. I'm sure you all are probably tired of hearing me talk, so we'll get to the Q&A section pretty shortly. There's a frequently asked questions process. So we really encourage any interested applicants to submit written questions to the program's mailboxes. These questions will be collected and answered and be posted on our program's website on the following schedule, or with the following schedule. So any questions we receive by May 12th, 2023, we're going to do our best to post these to the website May 19th, 2023. So we standardize the language. So if you ask me a really specific question, I have Steve's farm is looking to do this, we'll standardize it and say a local farm is trying to do X, Y, or Z, and we'll answer your question. And we'll post it on May 19th for everyone to read. The reason we do this is for standard responses towards interested applicants, to make sure we're not providing technical assistance to those in the know, but rather technical assistance or just application FAQ process assistance to those that have submitted these applications, and that we're consistent with our responses, so that we know that we're responding to, this nonprofit the same as we're responding to this CSU organization, and that we're using a similar language. We'll be doing this again May 26th. We'll post those June 2nd. And that's really the final FAQ process. So we'd encourage you guys to review this application, come up with some questions, and submit those before May 26th if you want to have a response. Now, these Sweep Tech email box and the HSP email box, you can find these email addresses on the bottom of the web pages as well. But make sure you take those email boxes away from this conversation. And there's a dash under here. I should probably CDFA HSP _tech. Make sure you know that, not a space, if you're going to be emailing that particular box. But it's also listed on the webpage. So, organizations that are seeking partnerships. So we are having later. We're going to be running essentially a survey to individuals that are interested. So you do not need to respond to the survey if you're an applicant or if you're an attendee at this meeting, but you can. If you're an organization that is interested in seeking partnerships to fulfill one of your requirements, perhaps you don't qualify to be a technical assistance provider, but you service a certain area, and you are an eligible block grant recipient based off the criteria that Nina went over, you can submit a sort of a request for a partnership to work with you through this process. We'll be sending out this survey after this meeting to both people that attended Tuesday's meeting as well as today's meeting. We'll consolidate it and post it to the web pages for your guys' reference, and then you'll be able to find a partner if you're in need of one. If you feel like you have this on your own, this is not a requirement. This is just something we're trying to facilitate.